There's a difference between managing a high-growth company and creating that company in the first place. We're going to explore both these topics today, but we're mainly going to focus on how a high-growth company originally gets going. We've got 5 great people with us today to talk about this. To my immediate left is Pete Hexter, a founding partner with Brax Fundraising. Next is Dwayne Hickson, CEO of N2 Publishing. Next to him is Chip Mahan, CEO of Live Oak Bank. He's followed by Brett Martin, CEO of Castle Branch. And on the end is Gary Winstead, President of Load Match Logistics. If we could please give our panel a round of applause. If you'd like to ask a question today, please text it in or have somebody at your table text it in for you. The number to send text is in your program. It's 910-264-8955. Please include your name and table number in the text along with your question. We'll bring microphones around so as many people as possible can ask questions directly to the panel. To get us going, I wanted to have everyone learn a little bit about each of the panelists. So I asked them only this morning to think about one thing that people likely don't know about them but contributed to their success. And then part 2, how big did they think the business they're working on now, how big did they think that opportunity originally was? So if we'll start with Pete with those 2 questions.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. I have actually 2 things that people probably don't know. The first is that Dwayne's actually my illegitimate son.
Dwayne didn't know that.
Secondly,
I didn't know we were going to get that personal this quickly, but all right.
Secondly, I probably have the most unique board of directors of any company up here. For the last 17 years, I have gotten up every morning at 5:30 and journeyed to a coffee house, Port City, Java, and met with pretty much the same group of people that range some between 7 and 15 to gather there every morning, and it's been it's been very beneficial. We have a lot of diverse backgrounds and the people that come there, and it's always good to have many voices in trying to build a business, have people be able to bounce things off.
You're good.
The second question, when we founded Brax, we started out with a whole different premise that we were going to build a company that our core competence was based around sports marketing and sports licensing. And we had an objective to create roughly a $5 million company, run it efficiently, and live happily ever after. In 2007, we stumbled upon a product and a whole unique channel of distribution that we knew nothing about, which was fundraising. And when we got involved in the fundraising area, it took us about 2 years to understand this channel of distribution, but it's a $3 billion annualized channel that impacts youth sports in schools across America. And we entered that hoping that we would have a small impact on it. And right now, over the last 5 to 7 years, we've experienced roughly 20% growth annually, which anybody that's been in that mode knows that it's a challenge to maintain that and fund that kind of growth. But there's an exciting upside still waiting for us.
Great. Your illegitimate son next.
Yeah. Thanks. Pete. So Pete let the cat out of the bag. I guess I'll add to it that Pete was my father, but Pete didn't share that. Chip here is actually his brother, so I'm the business prodigy of a byproduct of Daddy Pete and Uncle Chip. So I kind of had an unfair advantage getting started growing up with these guys. I think something people don't know about, actually the reason we started N2, how I got into it, I had been fired from my previous position months before. I had tried to be a kicker. I wanted to play arena football, and I've always been built like a linebacker, but I was actually a kicker. And I had the shortest career possible. I played 1 game. I missed all 3 of my field goal attempts. The game was on a Saturday night. Monday morning, I get called into the office, and I am fired. So come back to Wilmington. We had just bought a house in Wilmington. I was like, all right, what are we going to do now? So that's actually when N2 got started. I started looking for something and started N2.
How big did you, when you originally started
Yeah,
into, how
good
big do you
question.
think the opportunity was?
You know, I was just trying to survive at that point. I needed to make a living. And so I wasn't sure how big it would get to. I didn't have this vision of necessarily where it's at today. I think now I'm starting to get a better vision for what it can turn into. But for the first few years, it was really just, you know, it was kind of like a new idea. And it was just trying, let's just see if we can make it work. Let's just see if we can make this idea work. And if we can make it work, then let's try to make it work in a couple other places and then see where it gets to. But really didn't set out to conquer, you know, the United States with this idea of putting a neighborhood magazine in these top neighborhoods all across the nation. That wasn't the idea initially.
Okay. Uncle Chip?
Thank you.
Just passing it down, yeah.
So, Rob, the first thing I got to say is, you know, thanks for having me back. 4 years ago, when you asked me to come on this stage and talk about technology, when the meeting was over, my son, who was in the back, ran up to the front here and said, "Dad, you're an idiot. You're the only guy in the world that would call Facebook a fluff piece." So, you know, relative to what you don't know about me, I guess I'd have to think about our success. That would be Peggy and I's success. It was really her. I met my wife when we were 11, wrote in her high school yearbook that I was going to marry her at 14, and that was 51 years ago. So that was probably something. Relative to, you know, Live Oak Bank and all that other stuff that you asked, you know, the banking business is an interesting business. You know, in the baseball business, if you bat 400, you're in the Hall of Fame. In the basketball business, if you shoot 65%, you're in the Hall of Fame. In the banking business, it's about soundness, profitability, and growth in that order. So if you don't bat 98% in the business we're in, you lose. So we really never had aspirations of growth in the banking business. We have a software company that's a spinoff of the bank. Now that would be different. We have huge aspirations in the software company someday to, in these frothy capital markets, particularly in the software as a service space, to eventually take that company public. So we have very, very, very large goals there.
Okay. Brett?
I guess if Pete's the dad and Chip's the brother, that makes me either the mother or the sister. Not quite sure which one I want to be. I'll get back to you on that. So something that most people don't know about me, I grew up with most of my life with a horrible stutter. Really couldn't complete a sentence. Certainly couldn't say my name for a long time, which wasn't fun as a kid. Went to college. Thought I would study economics because that would be a good place for someone who couldn't speak. By
the way, I think Woody's here today.
I was going to say, sorry, Woody. But my second year, I saw this really pretty girl. I was hell-bent on getting to know her, so whatever line she was going to get in for a class, I got in right behind her. We both signed up for the same class. The story isn't as pretty as yours. Unfortunately, the class she signed up for was theater, which really sucks for a stutterer.
Oh,
wow. Anyhow, lo and behold, it worked out some way. That's a longer story, not for today. But I did my master's. Most people think of my master's in business. It's not. It is in theater. Theater actually cured my stutter. What I learned most from it was, I think, failure. As a stutterer, you fail a million times a day just trying to say your name. As an entrepreneur, you pretty much do the same thing. But you got to get through it, and you got to keep going. So, what did I think my company was? I don't know. I don't know today. All I know is that I want to be bigger than I was yesterday. If I'm here, I want to be there. That's always been the case, and that's never changed, and hopefully never will.
Gary?
What people don't know about me is I grew up in the tobacco fields in Vance County, up north of Raleigh. And as it relates to how that motivated me, I can tell you that much to my grandfather's chagrin, all I knew was that I wanted to do whatever it took not to have to do that for a living. I didn't want to work in those tobacco fields ever again once I left Vance County. And so that's really driven me in a lot of respects. When I think about it often, and also the way my grandfather conducted himself. He used to say when he put his feet on the desk, the board of directors just met. So I always wanted to be self-employed and be in control of my destiny, and I think that drove me a great deal in terms of where we are today. As it relates to where we are today versus where we envisioned when we started, we're a different company, many-fold than what we envisioned. My partner, Scott Anderson, and I, when we started this thing, said, I'm interested, I'd like to do this as long as we don't have any employees and we don't have any receivables. Well, today we have 25 employees, 120 owner-operators, and $2.9 million in receivables. So that didn't work out too well. But you know, the way we've grown the business and the way the business has evolved. You know, we started out as a freight broker, only operating only on behalf of exporters. Then we became a freight broker handling import traffic. Today we move 3 import loads for every 1 export load, and then we started a motor carrier and a second one and a third one. So we're a totally different company than we were when we started, and I would never have envisioned that, and only the good Lord knows where we're going to wind up tomorrow and beyond.
Okay. I'd like each of you to talk a little bit about the growth path of your business so far. I mean, you started the business, it took off immediately, you started it, it took many years for things to start happening, and then also if you can think a little bit about, lots of people start businesses, not many businesses you get to the level where your businesses are. Is there a way at the outset to actually plan for a high growth business? What things can you put in place to at least encourage that to happen?
Well, I think one of the critical components from the very beginning, you've got to create some kind of a matrix that allows you to stay focused and penetrate certain channels of distribution. For us,
can you guys hear? I know we're okay.
For us, when we first began the process, we really didn't have any idea we were going to end up in the fundraising business. So it took us about a year and a half to get our messaging right. We had to understand who our customer was and our customer, how they get communicated to. And once we figured that part of it out, because our initial messaging doesn't get to the end user. We have to go through a fundraising mom who then communicates to a committee, who then communicates to parents, who then communicate to the public to get their support. So it took us a while to do that, but once we got that strategic piece in place, it really gave us an opportunity to experience quick growth, because there are 75,000 schools in America that have to be involved, not necessarily by choice, in fundraising efforts on an annualized basis.
So you have relationships now with NFL, Major League Baseball, 90 colleges. How did you get the first one?
It wasn't easy. Fundraising, unfortunately, doesn't have the best reputation. The industry had a lot of issues with fraud and people being taken advantage of. So when I'd had a long-term relationship with the NFL, I've been involved with them for over now almost 30 years. And when we went to them, they had never allowed anybody, they hadn't even thought about taking their logoed merchandise into the fundraising channel. So we spent about a year with their lawyers being able to get that positioned. Once we did, we had the same issues with Major League Baseball, and then we went to the collegiate side. We had to deal with the NCAA, who felt that there might be some kind of a recruitment violation if children were carrying a Clemson or a Tar Heel cup in their hands and they came to your door. That might in some way influence decision-making processes in those schools. So we had to fight all those battles, and eventually we got them on board, and we are pretty pleased to be able to say that now fundraising for the NFL is about a $200 million a year business for them, and they say hello to me every time I go to New York to visit them.
Dwayne?
Man, the NFL knows who you are. That's pretty cool.
I think he just met with Pete Rozelle yesterday. Or, no, not the,
Roger.
Roger Goodell.
I do neighborhood magazines, man. Nobody in the NFL knows who I am. That's cool. I think for us, so to give you an idea of our growth, so at N2 Publishing, we started in 2004, so we just turned 9 this summer. Our first full year of sales was 2005. We did $300,000 in sales, and I think we did like 600 or 700 to $1 million, 1.5, 2, 3. This year we'll do somewhere around 35 to 40 million. And based on the contracts and stuff we have in process here, in 2 years we'll do 100 million. So it took us, for the first couple of years we kind of bounced around down here, and in the last 4 or 5, 6 years it's really shooting and taking off. So that's kind of our growth line. I think about that question about what it takes to grow. I feel a little bit like I answer that question differently each day, kind of depending on the mood I'm in. So take this answer for what it's worth. This is kind of the mood I'm in today. It's kind of like if someone asks you what your favorite song is or what your favorite movie is. It's kind of like whatever you just downloaded or whatever you saw recently. But for me, I'd say that what's helped us grow is just having the right people with us. And rewarding the right people. When we find people that we like, who just get it, who are hardworking, and they're going to go that extra effort, I love rewarding those people. Because as you grow, you're going to build, and for us, we'd build a system that worked for 10 people. Then we'd have 20 people, and it didn't work anymore. We had to re-break it and rebuild it. And then we had 20 people. Then a few months later, now we have 40 people. At this point, we've got about 400 full-time people working in N2 across the country. So we've had to break our system and our model over and over again. And it creates a lot of stress on different people. All that change, it's constantly changing. It's hard for people. And so I found that just really trying to reach out to the people who are critical to our organization, making sure they know that we care about them, because there's a lot of unknowns when you start a business. In fact, I remember it was 2006-ish probably, and Becky Clapper, she came into our office, and Becky, we've been working together for a little while. She's our first sales rep at N2 that we hired down here, and she came into the office, and N2 was making no money. Our product was horrible at the time. It was tough to sell our product. And so she comes walking in, and she's walking, I hear this little flop, flop. Every time she took a step, like something was slightly, kind of when you're wearing like flip-flops or something, kind of hit your foot, but she wasn't wearing flip-flops. I was like, Becky, what's up with your shoe? And she's like, oh man, like my sole's coming off. I was like, Becky, man, she's working hard, she's going around pounding the pavement, she's literally walking the sole off of her shoe, working. and she wasn't making any money, I knew, because she was working full-time at N2. None of us were making any money. And I was like, man, she probably can't even go buy a new pair of shoes. So we had a little bit of money in our checking account, so I wrote her a check. I'm like, Becky, go buy a new pair of shoes. Like, get a new pair of shoes, And to her, that was a big deal. And then I remember, later on, we had a guy who was working. This is probably 4 years ago or so, and he was critical to our business. And we were just catching up one day, talking about, hey man, so how was the weekend? What were you working on? And he said, we had to we're trying to rip up some carpet. We got fleas in this part of our house. I was like, oh man, that's not any good. And I was like, so what are you gonna do? He's like, we gotta buy some new flooring for it, and but I gotta save up for that. And he wasn't trying to play the pity game at all, but he was just kind of telling me what was going on in his life. I thought, oh man, he's got fleas. Well, how much does it cost to put hardwood floor and stuff like that in that little area? Because that's what he said he wanted. He's like, I think it's about $2,000. So I think we're gonna get that taken care of. I was like, man, that guy's got kids. And he's critical to our business. So I was like, all right. So the next day, we show up with a check. I'm like, hey man, here you go. I just want to see a picture of the finished product. When you get the new floors in, send me a photo. He's like, oh man, I appreciate it. It was just that kind of stuff along the way. Finding those key people who are just good with change, who believe in you, who believe in the vision, and making sure they don't go anywhere, that they're happy, that they know that you care about them, and keeping them on board. One more story. This is exciting. This is why I said I'm talking about it, because just yesterday I was talking with one of our girls she's been with us for about 6 years now, and she is the kind of person you got to keep in your company. We're going through some software changes, which I hate software. If you guys are good at software, anyone here is good at software, come and talk to me. Software drives me crazy, and we need a good partner. So we're going through some software changes. It's stressful, and this lady, man, she's carrying the company on her back right now, getting us through this. And so I'm talking. I'm like, hey, can you have Jamie? Can you have your husband call me? By the way, this is a secret right now, so I'm letting you all in on the secret. So if you know people then too, just keep it quiet, just between us. But I said, hey, I need Jane. I need your husband to call me, Jamie. I need to talk to him about a bass boat. She's like, a bass boat? You don't fish? I said, yeah, I got a friend who's into that because her husband's really into fishing. So he calls me. I was like, hey, man, I'm supposed to call you about a bass boat? I was like, all right, man, I lied to her. I need your help here. She's been working a lot lately, and I knew he knew that. He's like, yeah, she has been. I was like, hey, let's do something really cool. Let's do something that like, you know, will really make her excited to help, you know, to say thanks for all this work. I said, I know she loves the beach. Is there like a spot that she wants to go to, like in Florida or California? And then he drops this on me. He's like, oh, well, she's always really wanted to go to Hawaii. Man, all right. She doesn't go to Hawaii. So I was like, all right, man, we're going to make this happen. So, you know, so now we're like finding out how we're going to surprise her at this trip to Hawaii. And it just does a couple of things. You know, I couldn't do it in the beginning, right? Not everyone can do it. You hear about some of these companies and what they're doing, like what companies are doing at, you know, Google or SAS or Live Oak, and you want to match all that stuff, and you can't, right? When you're young, when you're a young business, you just can't. And if you try and play that game, you get in trouble. So in the beginning, all we could afford was a pair of shoes, you know? And then it was like some flooring. But whatever we can do, we've always said, like, we just want to make sure the people that we work with who are the right people know that we care about them, that we care about them as a person, so that they stay tied to the vision. Because that's, as we grow and we change, it's just chaotic, and it causes chaos in people's lives. But having people who are bought into it, and that vision, they don't go anywhere, and they're willing to work that extra amount to help us through it. That's what's allowed us to grow. I mean, like I said, from zero, you know, one person full-time to over 400, it was a lot.
That's great.
It was a lot. Thanks.
I don't think I can follow that. So we really don't think about growth. Brett mentioned a minute ago about guiding principles, and we are maniacal about some guiding principles. Treat every customer like they're the only customer in the bank. We talk a lot about marathons and not sprints. And in every business, you always talk about the three-legged stool. You have your customers, you have your shareholders, and you have your folks. And we start with our folks. So we do a lot of stupid stuff, right? So in this runaway healthcare situation, we said when we started this business that we were going to pay 100% of our folks' health care. And let me back up a little bit. I think it first starts with the business model itself, right? So do you have a business model which, when achieved, can create a situation where there are interesting barriers to entry to compete with you, right? So if you have that, and then if you trust your folks and you take care of your folks in extraordinary ways, they make unbelievable things happen. So yes, we have a 6% 401k match. That's stupid. Someone comes to work at Live Oak Bank and we put $6,000 in their HSA account, and if they don't spend it, they keep it. Lee Williams is my partner sitting over there, and I said, you know what, here's what we ought to do. We ought to pay 3 days a week for everybody at Live Oak to go to a personal trainer. Right? So, you know, that's not an insignificant amount of money. And then that creates camaraderie. Then we said, well, you know what? Let's come up with a socialistic bonus plan, right? And anyone in this room that has been involved in business has their own opinion of compensation, of executive compensation. And we said, well, let's do a little study, and this was in '08. Let's find out what the best banks in North Carolina make in terms of return on equity. I'm looking at the SunTrust guys, they know all about that return on equity. And the top banks in North Carolina at that time, the top 10% were making 8% return on equity. So we went to our board and said, look, here's the deal. We're not going to pay our folks a dime in a bonus at 8% return on equity. But for every dime we make above that, let's give our folks 25% of that. They say, great, let's do that. That way our interests are properly aligned, and we all win. And that bonus distribution at our bank is pro rata. So my bonus is exactly the same as anybody else in the bank on a pro rata basis of salary. And people do, as you say, they do amazing things. If you paint the target and say, this is where we're going, you won't have to worry about growth. It'll happen.
I want to come work for you too. Can you repeat the question? I've been so caught up in what they were saying, I have no idea why we're here, what we're talking about.
So in terms of how the growth started, you started the company, how quickly did it get going, and then is there a way to plan to have a high-growth company?
We're in our 15th year. The beginning was obviously just me, and it was obviously a very small company. We now have 300 in Wilmington. We have an office on the West Coast in Petaluma. We're building our new facility beside our current facility, which is an additional 60,000 square feet, which will put us at a total of 100,000 square feet with room to grow to 800 employees. We just committed to the state, city, and county to create another 420 jobs over this next X period moving forward. Awesome. So yeah, there's been a lot of growth. I think what has driven the growth, besides our people, what has driven the growth is a dedication and a commitment company-wide to continually innovate. We are not the same company we were 15 years ago. I look back at that company and had we, and I chuckle, but had we stayed there, we would be a fraction of our size. You know, I look at us typically in 3 to 5 year blocks, and I like to look back and see a very different company. Not that we give up what we were doing, we attract and retain that, but that we add to it. The SunTrust folks were saying that one should serve only their customers and not travel too outside their core competencies. I really disagree with that. I think many companies, BlackBerry is a tremendous example, they get stuck in their core competencies, and that's all they do. They focus on their core competencies, they focus on their core audience, and they never expand that. Don't get me wrong, those people and those services are the most important, but they give you the ability to reach out, to say, okay, let me take my core competencies and find a new population. Or reach out further and say, let me take my core competencies, or let me take my current population and offer new products and services to them. Or reach out even further, which is, again, I think the furthest most companies go, where you start saying, let me offer, and I believe you've just done this, new products and services to entirely new populations. And that's when I think you start to change the shape of your business as opposed to the size of your business. Just growing at your core can truly be dangerous because sometimes the world changes and your core is no longer relevant. So I think you need to grow both in your core and you need to be looking outside your core.
When we started Load Match in 2006, as I said, we never envisioned that I'd be sitting up here talking about being a high-growth company. We started the company based on actually a phone call that I received where there was a niche market that wasn't being addressed. And so we focused on that niche, and we started to serve that niche and found out we could make money serving that niche. And as we grew the business around that niche, we recognized that the competition, and who were both our competitors and our suppliers, that they were doing a really bad job of servicing the marketplace. The innovation, communication, technology, those things didn't exist at all. And we recognized that if we could address that and provide a level of communication, of technology, of professionalism to an otherwise very unprofessional marketplace, that the market would like the song that we were singing. And so, again, I'd like to tell you that was my great vision going in, but that'd be a misnomer. And so we tried to capitalize on a marketplace that was a sizable, large marketplace, but it was not being served in a manner that we felt like our customers deserved and that they wanted. And so that was a real good driver for our success early on. And then you guys probably remember in 2008, the economy melted down. It was in all the papers, newspapers, TV, they reported that extensively. Our business model had grown like this until August of 2008. We moved 875 containers in 2008, and in November of 2008, we moved 115. It just dropped off the face of the earth, and so we came back in January of that year. We had to rebuild and start all over again, and I was, at that time, everybody's business was starting to really melt down. Our customers, their suppliers, everybody was really struggling to find a foothold in the marketplace again. And I went out and I talked to a customer one day, and he prior to that wouldn't even take my call. And we sat down, and I was talking to him about what we do and how we might be able to benefit him. And I made the comment of how hard it had been to get in touch with him and a lot of folks like him. And he said, you know, last year our business was white hot, and we didn't have time to talk to you. Today, we're trying to figure out a way to compete in this marketplace and do a better job of competing. And you're selling savings and efficiency and communication and technology and the things that are otherwise not available out there, and I have to have you. And that was a sort of a watershed moment for me to recognize that what we did have value beyond saving him a few dollars on his transportation cost, but also when I could tell him where his shipment was, and I could push him real-time updates and allow them to dial into our system if they wanted to and look at real-time shipment data, all of which in our little corner of the marketplace wasn't available. So, you know, those were lessons that we learned, and they've served us reasonably well in terms of our growth, and word of mouth spreads that around in an otherwise not so professional marketplace when people recognize that hey, Load Match we'll know where our container is if we give it to you, and that's worked pretty well.
I'd like to spend a couple minutes. I'd like to spend a couple minutes talking about, is there a way to have a fast-growing company like this if you don't at some point really go against conventional wisdom, that you know, you're zigging when everyone else is zagging, and then you identify some opportunity that others don't see. And I want to start off picking on Dwayne, mainly because it pisses me off that he's going to have a print-only $100 million business and I don't. But if you think about what he's done, so starting in 2004, the age of the internet and all things going that way, he has created a company, completely print publications. To my knowledge, there's no digital revenue, so you're going in the exact opposite direction of most media, most of the world. So is that, was that a necessity? I mean, I'm sure you've had opportunities along the way to say you should do this digital program or that. Was it key to resist conventional thinking there?
Yeah, you know, Daddy Pete and Uncle Chip didn't have enough sense to teach me to get into the digital age, so we kind of missed it. You know, we've had a lot of people come up to us and say, you know, what are you guys doing digitally? This is for years, gosh, people keep saying this to us, why aren't you doing anything digital? You're missing it. Why? I mean, you're not digital? I mean, you can put these things online, you can do this, and we're like, no, we're not. And I don't know if I'm stubborn. What we do is we kind of looking at, I guess I'm a little bit, I don't know, you guys heard that theory. I think it was Jim Collins talked about you shoot like the bullets and then cannons, and you know, you kind of have to figure out what's working and what's not. And so I tend to kind of sit back and watch a little bit to see, before I jump on the newest technology, how people are going to monetize it, if it's going to work. What we've seen for us is that our product, I was thinking, you know, Gary, as you were talking about, you had your watershed moment where you realized that your product actually had value. And I've seen that as we've learned, our product has value because what we do, our product, we've tried to position ourselves in a way that, you know, we do magazines. If you don't know what we do magazines for neighborhoods across the U.S. And our tagline is turning neighborhoods into communities. And so our goal is to help take a community of people. They live together, but they probably don't know their neighbors. They don't know many of their neighbors, or maybe they know all their neighbors, but they still like know what's going on within them and their lives and their house. So we try to have content in our magazines where if Brett remodels his house, he's got this gorgeous kitchen, and he wants to show it off to the neighbors, you know, that's what we'll put in the magazine. We'll go into Brett's kitchen, get some photos, and talk about the work and what it looks like. And neighbors like to know what the inside of the neighbors' houses look like. You know, and that's not online anywhere that I'm aware of. And so because there's actually some value there, there's something that they're interested in, they go to it and they look at it. And we just always thought, look, if we play the digital game and we try to do some kind of put it online and have click advertising and it's pay per click, all that kind of stuff, that's just not our model. We work with communities that have a couple hundred homes. We're not going to get a lot of traffic and a lot of volume in this digital space. So what we really want to do is just create magazines that really, and it's actually helped us. As everything has gone more digital, soon people are like, what, a magazine? What is this magazine I have? This is odd, everything's digital, right? So we're one of the few pieces now coming to them that they actually look at that has value, it sits on the table. So for us, the trend has been to stay focused. A lot of people are telling us, hey, go digital, go digital, go digital, but we just didn't see how it would work with our product, and so we kind of just kept pushing forward, and it's actually worked out. So I don't know if we're stupid, if we're lucky, a little bit of, smart. That's what I like to think, but it's working out.
Great. Anyone else want to talk about defying conventional wisdom?
Well, I think, and I think you touched on it, the companies that 2008, and everyone in this room knows how horrible and scary it was. It was a tough time for pretty much every industry, and there's a lot of businesses that just didn't make it. They just turned the lights off and shut the doors. And I think if you look at the makeup or the genetics of those businesses, they were probably doing the same thing in 2008 that they were doing in 1999. So it's that complacency. It's choosing not to change because change is difficult and change is exhausting and change represents failure. And things are going good. Things are going great. Why should I spend time changing? There's so many forces that work against you, that work against change. I think we think about changing our business. I think we think about growth 2 times in the life of a business, or at 2 points. One, when your business is doing really well. You go, wow, I have growth, fantastic. But at that moment, you don't think about 3 years to come. So instead of focusing on 2018 and saying, I'd better get focused on growth then, you get focused on just reaping the benefit of the current growth that's in front of you. The second time you think about it is when your sales start to slump. But it's too late. Growth takes time. I like to tell my team, you can't wake up in the morning and run a triathlon and hope to win it. There's 2-3 years of work that goes into that triathlon before you can even finish it. And I think the same is true about your business. So, growth is something, well, everyone else is either reaping the benefits or crying because their sales are diminishing. Growth is something you're doing constantly. You don't start it at that moment. You've started it 3 years prior. And I think growth it's the product of your past efforts. But those efforts have to start, and you have to be focused on them when it may not be intuitive. So I think it speaks to people. They may not be doing what no one else is doing, but they're doing it at a time that no one else is doing it. And that's what protects them when things go south.
Okay.
I think that, first of all, this is about growth, so this is not an answer to your question, but for those in the audience, I would say that, look at these guys that are sitting to my right? It's passionate leadership, right? So if you're interested in growth, follow the passionate leaders. Just listen to the enthusiasm in the voices of these gentlemen to my left and to the right. Yes, unconventional, of course, right? So, we tee it up at Live Oak Bank every day, not only against the SunTrust Company, but against Wells Fargo and B of A. And they have a very traditional model. You gather deposits through branches, and you make loans, and you keep those loans on your books. And we don't do any of that, right? We in a previous life, we started the first bank in the world on the internet, never really saw the need to go to a bank branch at all. And we don't keep much of the loans that we generate. So we try to sell loans in a very active secondary market, keep a very small piece so we can leverage our balance sheet and grow without taking the commensurate amount of risk that a conventional bank takes in a highly regulated industry. So, and yes, to me, it's all about, ultimately about technology. Yesterday I was in New York at a Goldman Sachs conference and listened to Lloyd Blankfein, who is arguably the most influential man in the world, maybe, the chairman of Goldman Sachs, talk at dinner the night before. He had his chief economist stand up there yesterday and said, look, CapEx is coming down companies in the United States have more cash than they've ever had. Banks are as liquid as they've ever been. So if that's not a message to every business that you've got to do it different, how can you improve your business with technology? Certainly the colleagues here at the SunTrust Company would say that the Wells Fargo and the U.S. Bank are two of the most respected banks in the country, right? So U.S. Bank is the third largest SBA lender in the United States. Live Oak Bank is second. We do 40% more volume with half the people, all through technology. So, and it's changed. The ability, as you know, to write code today is completely different than it was 10 years ago. And for those companies that take advantage of that to optimize their business intelligence, their workflows on a day-to-day basis, will make a difference and we'll be the survivors.
I think one of the most critical components for us was surrounding ourselves with exterior partners. And I think as a company grows, an awful lot of what takes place is managed internally, but along the way, you have to seek out individuals on the outside who are going to bring new voices into your company. And we've been very fortunate. We've done that. One of them, Cornerstone, has been a valuable asset for us to come in and help us position certain things within BRACS, a lot of it creating measurable points of accountability. I think the other thing that's important is you're hiring new people and you expand, which we've quadrupled our employee base. You need to look for people who have been on the ride, that have maybe been working for a company that's experienced aggressive growth, and having the opportunity to have them bring new thoughts and ideas back into your organization, and making sure, as Dwayne pointed out, that they're buying into your philosophy and you're taking good care of them to stay on long term. The last thing is, you better have the right bank who understands your business at your side.
And that's Live Oak Bank.
Let's take a question from the audience. Table 24, Jennifer Adams.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Adams, and I have ties to two companies, gotten a lot of talk today. I'm the new training program manager at Encino, which is Live Oak Bank's software company, but I spent almost 17 years at SunTrust. So, but my question is to any of the panelists, why did you decide to start your company in Wilmington, North Carolina, besides we know it's the best place in the world for quality of life? And what's the advantages and disadvantages of being headquartered here?
I'm not going to answer.
I'll start. We started Load Match here because I lived here. I actually got transferred down here with another company in 1991. I was here and didn't want to leave because of all the reasons you said. It's a wonderful quality of life here. One of the things we found out, though, when we started this company, and a prior company that I had here as well, was that it's really a good community in which to do business. We're very fortunate here from the employer side. One of our former mayors, who's a good friend of mine, said we had the best trained and best educated wait staff in the state. And that's not so good for the wait staff, but it's really good for employers. And I still continue to be astounded every time we post an ad or go out and seek candidates for whatever role it may be in our organization, the quality of the individuals we receive. It's really an amazing thing to me. Some of these folks are more qualified to sit in my seat than I am. But all in all, it's been a great community to do business in, and we've got a great support system here from a legal, accounting, financial standpoint. So it's been a good run for us here. And there's some things in the state of North Carolina that I wish we could change at the state level, and I won't get into a political conversation about that, but all in all, we have looked at relocating our business to Charleston because we have a tremendous amount of business that we do down there. But on balance, Wilmington's still the place we want to be, and we're going to stay here.
I moved my company from RTP to here, primarily because of that big blue tub of water out there. It's a tremendous thing, and it attracts a lot of businesses, and it's a reason a lot of us are here. I think one of the reasons that we can succeed, and one of the most important reasons, is both the community college system, but also the university. We're very connected to the university. At last look, 58% of our employees were connected, either currently going to school at the university or graduates of the university. So they're a big part of our community. Those are great, energetic, exciting, excited employees who really want to come to work every day, and it makes for a great place to work, and a place where I certainly want to come to work every day. I think what holds us back, and we were all touched on it, is our technology culture here in Wilmington. It's too small. It needs to grow. I have spent the last 3 months traveling the country in Austin and Charleston, looking at the tech incubators in San Francisco and in Boston, because I'm committed to building that here. And I think we all need to do it together, we need to strengthen our technology community, because every advantage that we create or come up with or think about, every idea we have, lo and behold, requires technology. And the lack of a community, it slows the idea down. We just built a new platform. We had to go to India. We built it in India, and it's taken longer than it should. We're not as connected to the people building it, but I couldn't build it here. So I think that's what hurts us. But I believe, there's a lot of change coming that way for Wilmington, and hopefully 3-4 years from now, we'll be saying the opposite, that Wilmington has a technology community like a Charleston or an Austin.
First of all, I've heard so much about you at table 24 in Encino, and I'm sorry that we haven't met. There you are. Hello. And that's about growth, and Encino's in another building than Live Oak Bank, which is why we're building another building to try to get everybody back together. So kind of a two-part answer to that question. One is a little more data than you want to know. So Peggy was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2001 when I was running a technology company that we started in Atlanta that was public at the time. I quit, hired a guy, he screwed up the company. I came back in as chief executive at precisely the point in time that an activist shareholder group in New York City took a 10% position in the company. They put us in play. I, with a private equity group in California, made a bid for the company. The board rightfully turned us down. I quit, came to Wilmington full-time. Lee Williams said, let's go play golf. I said, well, that'll work. And so a week later, we figured out how to start Live Oak Bank. And Live Oak is about attracting and retaining talent. So yes, we built the most ridiculous building that you possibly build in Wilmington. And we treat our people the way that I mentioned before. So that's easy. Encino's a bit different, right? So we had 2,300 employees in Atlanta in the previous technology company. And anyone in their rightful mind would say, well, why in the world would you start a technology company in Wilmington when you had 2,300 people in Atlanta that you already knew and they were the best of the best? The one thing that I've learned about technology people is they are interesting, right? They are, whether they're in the Valley or Boston or Austin, and we bought business in all those towns, they're usually all about them, and they're usually about the next new thing, right? I want options, and I want the options to vest in a year, and then it's a quarter, and then it's a month. And what we found with Encino is if we can attract the best and the brightest to Wilmington to be all about us and not them, then they're less likely to jump around unless we're successful in what we're talking about today, which is getting a lot of other technology companies to move to Wilmington, right? So that is my long-winded answer to your question, dear, and I can't wait to meet you after this.
From our perspective, I look at it again a little bit differently, but I think for a mid to small company, there's an opportunity here to get a greater ROI on the people you're hiring, essentially because there's a lot of people out there that want to stay in Wilmington and are amenable to taking a little less on the salary side. That factored into when we're in Raleigh trying to compete for talent up there as a small to mid-sized company. We don't always have the wherewithal to be able to do that. So And I think the last thing for Brax is we want to be in a community where our brand is known and that we can make an impact. Our company committed from day one that 20% of every dollar of profit the company made, we would give back to either local, and primarily 80% of that goes to the local community or the national community. And over the years, we've gotten a tremendous amount of satisfaction from being able to do that.
Let's explore the technology area a little bit. What specifically has to happen for us to have the technology talent here?
Well, this is going to be unpopular, because I knew this was coming. You know, my view on that is, and we at Live Oak and Encino love Scott and Connie. I mean, I think you have to have a concerted effort, Rob. I mean, you know, this is competitive, right? So if you're competing with an Austin or a Boston or the Valley or Atlanta, and we live in, forget Wilmington, North Carolina, southeastern North Carolina, somehow, some way, and we're not involved in the politics of Wilmington at all, the political leaders of this town need to come together and say, we need to invest this in this one thing, not where Pender has their own thing, Brunswick has their own thing, and we have, you know, 6 different initiatives in Wilmington. There, in my judgment, there needs to be one concerted effort and one voice, and put some marketing dollars behind that, and let's go compete.
So Brett, you just completed a lot of travels looking at a lot of these places we've been talking about. What were your main takeaways as to what we need here, what specifics, what do we need to do?
Yeah, we spent a couple months traveling to a number of different cities and saw some of the best incubators, accelerators, co-working spaces, whatever you want to call them. They're all kind of different. And I think what our takeaway was a little different than yours, Chip, is that the ones that really succeed are private. And they're built from people like us on the stage getting together, and I wasn't prepared to talk about it today, but I'm going to commit the top floor of our building to an incubator. And it's our hope to go around the country to Austins and Bostons and say, look, come visit Wilmington. In doing so, why don't you take 2 or 3 of your employees that are currently working for a tech firm in Austin, like Tech Ranch, and they've already offered to do this. They'll put 3 people in Wilmington in this space. I'm going to fund the space so that their rent is going to be nominal. And then, hopefully, companies like myself and Chip, we're going to commit to using these people. So when Chip needs an Android app, he's not going to go to Austin because these people are already here. So yes, if we try to compete with Austin, we'll lose. But if we create a landing zone that is so user-friendly, that not only says, you know, come here, put your employees here. If you don't like it, you can leave because there's no long-term rent. But on top of it, I guarantee you that you can get work from my company, this company, that company. They're going to buy into it. It's a no-brainer. The deal is, 2 years later, they got to leave the incubator. Most incubators have a graduation period. 2 years is pretty typical. So those 3 people who now work for a company in Austin but live here in Wilmington, they got to go get a space. So they go to Lumina Station. They open an office for 4 or 5. And that's the kind of approach, as we look at other cities, that's where they succeeded. But it's going to take private money, and it's not a fortune, but it takes a commitment from the private leadership to let's go out there and tell people how great Wilmington is. The fact that we, even my company, isn't in, at NC State every year trying to poach those students, we should be actively moving around the country trying to sell Wilmington as a place to come and provide a landing zone that makes it so easy for them to say yes. So I believe in the private approach, and I'm probably going to call Chip after this, and hopefully he'll join me in it. But
So when you look at other challenges for your businesses coming up, what are the if you can look 5 years into the future, what all of you have achieved very high levels of growth for many years now. What keeps you up?
Well, I'll start that maybe in a slightly different way, Rob. I mean, you and I talked on the phone earlier this week and talked about the mistakes that you've made, right? and lessons learned. You know, I would say that ultimately it's capital, right? So when you think you have enough, you don't. Raise capital when you don't need it. When I was running S1, which was a public company in 1999, I was on the runway at Hartsfield, headed to Amsterdam to see a customer, and I was number 60 for takeoff. And we were Goldman Sachs' #1 pick, and at the time had a market cap of in excess of $5 billion. We had $30 million in the bank, losing $2 million a month. And I said, this is monopoly money. This is ridiculous. We have to raise capital tomorrow morning. The NASDAQ was at 5,000. So we all know what happened there, right? So the NASDAQ goes from 5,000 to 1,000. We raised in the next 90 days $350 million from our customers, not from Wall Street, but from our customers. Had we not done that, that company would have gone under. So I would say, kind of as an aside from the question, raise capital when you don't need it.
I totally agree with Chip. You could never be overcapitalized. I think the capitalization for small business is the bane of every small business's existence. We are no different. It is one of those things that I like to joke that we started Load Match with absolutely nothing. We still have almost all of it. You can't be overcapitalized, and capitalization is one of those things that when you have that black swan that flies over and you have a big receivable that goes bad, or in our case, the thing that keeps me awake at night is a catastrophic accident with one of these 120 trucks running up and down the road with our flag on the side. Capital is how you survive those things, and so that's something we continue to work on and continue to try to build our capital base. That's really almost our #1 focus right now is that very thing, so from our perspective, I completely mirror your comment.
Yeah, buddy? I'll cut off my pops.
Go ahead, son.
Appreciate it. All right. For us, the thing, Rob, is that I think about is twofold. One, it's leadership. How are we going to continue to create leaders in our organization who are going to step up as we continue to grow? Look, our goal is we've got a lot of big goals now where we want to see this thing get to. And I really believe in a lot of our potential. But it's not going to happen because of me. It's not going to happen because of a few key people. We need leaders in our company. So we have a lot of programs that we keep putting in place to develop leaders, to invest in our people, to help them grow personally, professionally, because that's the only way we're going to be able to make it happen is if we have leadership. The other thing that I think about a lot is how do we grow but keep our culture what it is? A lot of people like N2 because of our culture. When they come in, it's got a certain feel. All of your organizations all have a certain feel, and that culture is a big part. I think for us, it's a big retention tool. And so we're very, sometimes a little crazy about it. We talk about it a lot on how that plays out, just little things like, man, I hate gossip. It just drives me nuts. Like, you got people in your office that just kind of idle, negative chatter, and they just want to complain about this, complain about that. I mean, I want those people to feel so unfreaking comfortable then too that they leave. I'm just not about that stuff. Right? We got a lot to do. There's a lot of things we're trying to grow, and there's a lot of impact we want to have in the region and also nationally. So we want people who are going to, who love our culture, who are going to stay here. And so as we grow, the big focus is how do we keep our culture what it is, what's got us to where we're at right now. How do we keep that? Because a lot of times I've seen organizations when they grow, they lose sight of that, or they're unable to keep that under control, and you lose your culture and that identity, and I think a lot of bad things happen at that point. So for us, it's continuing to develop leaders and to keep our culture very solid.
And for us, I think the biggest challenge, I've identified that I am the oldest guy on the stage here, is to maintain the ability to communicate in today's marketplace. I can still remember sitting with my dad about 35 years ago, seeing the first FedEx ad and saying to him, how the hell is this going to work? Anybody that's that incompetent that has to overnight something, I said, this company won't last 3 weeks. So you take that and fast forward it to where we are today, and the marketing strategies that we have developed over the years in our own company, they're becoming obsolete on almost a daily basis. Our customer primarily is a volunteer mom or dad who probably 10 years ago, we were doing a direct mail piece too. Today, if it's not content that has some video to engage them or something that moves them electronically to open it up, we're not going to talk to these people. They're just, I was in a marketing meeting with our group about 3 weeks ago, and I'm going, we got to launch an email campaign around, and they looked at me going, email? That is obsolete. So for me, it's you got to go out and make sure that you got the right players in the right place, and it comes back again to the technology side of making sure that we have the resources here to keep our bandwidth going in the direction it has to go and communicating to that next generation that's coming along.
And I agree with Chip. I think capital is king, cash is king. We're lucky at Castle Branch. We don't. We're a very closely held company. We have no investors, and have no debt. But that's because of fiscal management. And there's another storm coming. We all know it. We don't like to talk about it. But you prepare for that storm now, and you usually prepare for it, with fiscal management, because it gives you the ability to change your company now or a little bit later in order to miss that next storm, because we all know they come in cycles, and it's funny. We look back, we all talk about 2008, but do the math. It's sometime 2018. There's something else coming. It's what we can't see that scares me the most, but being ready for it fiscally is essential.
We'll get time for one more question. We'll get it from Alex at table 18.
My name is Alex Fedor. I'm the president of Social Pathways. First, I'd like to thank the greater...
Oh, we get the mic on for him.
I can't hear a word.
Okay.
I'll just shout. Oh, here comes one.
I can speak for you, Alex. This is Alex. From where? Try.
So I'm the president of Social Pathway Solutions. I'd like to thank the Wilmington Business Journal for our feature in this publication of the technology column. As an MBA student and one of the new companies within the UNCW Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, I'm receiving a lot of great support from professors. Dr. Harper invited me to breakfast. SBTDC. I was wondering, with your ventures, what sort of external help did you get to get off the ground, and what's your recommendation for maximizing this opportunity? Thank you.
All right. So questions, what support have you received in the community to help you grow your business? Assuming you have received some support in the community to grow your business.
I can tell you that one of the things that we did early on was try to reach out to find some of the resources that were at our disposal, some of which were free, some of which we had to engage. But at the end of the day, there's a tremendous skill set out there that of people and companies and organizations that provide tremendous resources to us. One of which is our Cornerstone Partners. The TAB group here in town, two of my TAB board members sitting right here, trying they provide a tremendous sounding board for us once a month to be able to talk about issues that we face, whether it's sales, marketing, human resources, finance, whatever it may be. So one of the things I would say is that whether it's TAB or whatever other alternatives are out there, is surround yourself with similarly situated companies. My panelists here, I'm always willing to help companies that are trying to get off the ground, because I've been there. I know what it's like, and so by all means, there's a tremendous support system within the community here. And one of the other things that we've done is we've engaged the services of an outside chief financial officer, Phil Alfano. I think Phil's here this morning, but somebody to look at our financial modeling and our financial forecasting in a way that I don't have the ability to do, and so we've tried to identify our weaknesses and go out and find that support system in the community, and I've never had a problem filling that need here.
We weren't smart enough to ask for help when we started, unfortunately, and I wish we had, because it would have made the road a little easier. But I would say that the university and Chancellor Miller and everyone working for the Center for Entrepreneurship I mean, that's a fantastic resource, and that's the type of, I mean, those are the type of communities that we need here, and that's what we need to foster. And I went to see it. I'm not sure if any of you have seen it yet. If you haven't, you need to get there. You should probably donate some money. That'd be a good idea. But it's a great place, and we're very, very lucky to have it in this community.
Yeah, I completely concur with that. When Lee Williams and I started this business, we knew that we were the wrong people to run spreadsheets for the FDIC application to start a brand new bank. So we went to the dean of the business school at UNCW and said, give us the name of your best guy. And they said, well, it's a little unconventional, but he's in a chemical plant across the river. That guy is now our chief financial officer, has unlimited potential. And I don't know how many UNCW interns that we've had since the beginning, but it's probably well into the double digits. And we hire a number of college graduates every year, not only from UNCW, but University of North Carolina, Elon, Washington University, and others. So thanks, Gary, wherever you are around here.
Yeah, we fortunately got a lot of help from some of these local spots. You mentioned Dr. Harper's there, but I know, like you said, the SBT, Small Business Technology Development Center. I think Jim Howell was the guy I met with years ago. I went to a Cape Fear class. It's so funny to think about like what you're involved in now as opposed to when the business started. I mean, I literally thought like, okay, so I'll just be the accountant, QuickBooks. All right, how do you do QuickBooks? And so I remember going to a class trying to learn QuickBooks and a class trying to learn how to like design publications. Like, yeah, hey Rebecca, you're gonna be our designer, my wife. Congratulations, you get to be our designer and start designing magazines. Like, thinking it was that easy. That's where we were at. So we're going to these little classes here in the community to try to figure stuff out. And you learn real quick, okay, that's not going to happen. That's probably not a good use of time. You shouldn't be engaged in that. But yeah, having the university right here, we were able to hire some people who I think the key people in our organization today that we've grown with, who have been in this 8-9 years, came from the local schools. And because they came out of school and we weren't paying much, and they couldn't find much either. So we gave them a little bit. That was better than nothing. So they came and worked with us, and now we've been able to grow. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of using anybody that will help. Anybody that's been down the road, I've always tried to get time with them and learn from them, and even if I just get one little piece from them. And so, fortunately, there's been enough pieces here locally that have helped us when we got started.
I think the biggest challenge when we were beginning our business was there wasn't a defined opportunity to seek help. There was a lot of fragmented pieces out here, but there was no unifying force. And we were blessed to have recruited a chancellor that definitely is understanding what it takes to drive business. And I think the Entrepreneurial Center, which I am proud to say I'm involved with, is going to be a huge plus. They're doing some very innovative things there with their venture capital fund, and we've got great leadership in Chancellor Miller. So I think there's a huge upside for everybody in this room to engage and find resources there.
Will we please have a round of applause for the panel? So like Dwayne, we always like to give our panelists some printed material. So this time we got them a book called Founders at Work, which interestingly is about a lot of different technology companies and how they got their start. So it's appropriate to the discussion. So thank you again for coming. Please don't forget to nominate or apply yourself to be a speaker at the next Power Breakfast, which will be right here December 12th. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Chip. That's fun.
Good job.